Welcome y'all to Afro King Speaks, where I don't have my crown anymore because it broke into pieces. Either I'll Frankenstein it back together or I'll just get another crown. But for now, the crown is spiritual. And today we will be talking about the etymology of spells. You're probably thinking, like, am I about to join a cult? No. We will be talking about, well, first we're going to define etymology, and we will use our trusty sidekick Google to do that. Etymology is the study of the history of words, their origins, and how they form meaning and have changed over time. So essentially, it's words, history of words, where they originated from. For example,
Niger.
which is the Latin word for black. And, we have several meanings today, negro or negro or the famous one,
Neighbor.
but they all trace back to that original Latin word. And they have different meanings over time, and they have many different contexts. Now that we have an idea of what etymology means, now we're going to study the etymology of spells. So it originates from Old English, and it essentially is a story or a tale or even a sermon, which I think is interestingly important because imagine your black pastors. You'll notice that a lot of what I'm talking about will be coming from the perspective of an African American. So I'm not saying that this won't apply to other people, but that's my bias. And pastors that tell sermons have a very specific depth in their voice or their tone in order to convey conviction and importance. And so sermons are a very common and stereotypical example of how they convey stories, and those stories can place essentially spells on us. And that's just one example. Another version of these stories or tales that's told are things that we learn in history class. History told by the winners of wars and of imperialism or colonization. They place spells on us that dictate what sort of laws we pass, or our morality, the way we dress, what sort of music we make, what we put in our media. All these things are dictated by the spells or stories or tales that are told. It's to my opinion, and my opinion is of course based on the research I've done, that these spells or stories, they aid in regulating how we humans behave in a society. They make us think that certain things that we can't see aren't real, aka the spirit realm. Yet we go to church to help us regulate our relationship with this realm and even dictate the rules of this realm and how we can get to this realm, aka heaven or hell. And just these names, heaven and hell, have so much context behind them based on the religions that we practice: Christianity, Catholicism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism. There's so many, but on this side of the sphere, it's definitely Christianity or Catholicism. The spell of legislation that makes people think that just because it's written in law means that it should be done this way, aka if the law says that it's wrong, or if the law says that it's right. But just because it's either one of those things doesn't mean that these things are morally right or morally wrong. And of course, the type of spells that I think people will identify with the most from my video would be the ones that are placed on us subconsciously based on how we live, aka you living in a really toxic household with family members that place these curses on you, either by neglecting you or by you not growing up with the right resources for you to thrive. It's well known that kids that grow up with empty stomachs or just a lack of sufficient food don't end up learning the same way that other kids do that have sufficient food source and or resources, having a good home, having good clothes, and having good parents, just empathetic parents that could teach you without using authority all the time, but also using empathy and logic and raising you with good habits. And one that's important, but I won't get into too much, at least not at the beginning of my series of videos, is how the placebo effect, aka how our brain can trick us into abiding by these spells. And I think one great example of this is, and famous one, is the sugar pill. How you might have a headache and someone gives you a pill that's literally just sugar, but it tricks your brain into thinking that, oh, this pill is supposed to help me, so I'll get better. And patients will report that their headache is gone or it has lessened. And that's just one example. Fill in sugar pill with X drug. It could be weed, water, fruit. It could sex. It could be anything. And your brain will trick you into believing that whatever spell they're placing on you is working.
Do you remember when I told you that I believe one person is creating the emergency? This is how. Question. Do you feel anything?
My stomach is a little upset.
Interesting. That's actually a side effect for the very sensitive. Number 2, Rhonda, please engage the receivers. Thank you. Yeah. It looks normal, but listen to what's underneath.
The missing are missing. They're only departed. Poison apple. Pardon? What were those?
Those are the hidden messages that are being broadcast on every TV and radio, and they are infecting our minds without us even knowing they're there. The emergency is caused by subliminal messages.
Manipulation sub rosa.
Yes. It's taken a long time for me to put this together. The sender of these messages is putting our psyches under siege.
Why would someone do that?
When people are anxious or frightened, they're more susceptible to suggestion. They panic, they turn on each other. I mean, look how people are treating each other now. Aggressive, suspicious, unkind.
All part of the plan.
We are being softened up.
That sounds bad.
Yes. These messages are increasing in frequency and getting stronger. Our society is fragile and so much closer to the breaking point than we've ever been. And almost no one is aware enough to fight it.
Why are those children's voices?
People aren't naturally suspicious of children. Your voices don't trigger our defenses. Using children to send the messages makes them
Bro, like, so much is going on in this video and it is crazy. Like, y'all get the main point, is that messages can be subconsciously, or not subconsciously, subtly put into our media that could affect the way we feel. And but because we have the spell of stories telling us that certain music or certain media is okay, may it be love and hip hop or certain rap music, our culture tells us that these things are okay to consume. But a lot of us aren't conscious of how these things negatively affect our behavior, how they can subconsciously make it okay for us to want to try this gateway drug, or to want to be a part of gang activity because it looks cool, and some women might actually be attracted to that. Like, all these things, we tell ourselves that it's okay because of the spell or the story or history that our culture has expressed to us that is identifiable with our identity of ourselves. And when this history or spell is attacked, we feel that it's an attack on our character or our identity, and we get aggressive. And even the way we react to this danger that we feel, or this critique of this culture or spell, some people are trained to react to this danger with violence. And some people look at it as appropriate, and other people will look at it as very primitive. It gets very convoluted, and there's a lot of colors going on when it comes to critiquing these spells, and without having these people feel like it's their identity being critiqued.
Your voices don't trigger our defenses. Using children to send the messages makes them virtually undetectable.
That's another thing, bro. That right there is key, because there's so many examples, and it gets very convoluted or complicated when it comes to how they use children to make it feel like certain things are okay. There are some TV shows, especially on Netflix, on a lot of these streaming platforms, where they will use adult actors to play these high schoolers, even sometimes junior high schoolers. It's really weird that they don't use college students instead. It literally is that easy. Like the whole plot could stay the same. They're just in college, but I don't know. It's to my opinion that that's done on purpose because parents don't pay attention to what their kids are consuming nowadays. Most kids would just hand their child or toddler an iPad or even a phone nowadays and let them have at it. They're exposed to the World Wide Web and whatever sort of experiences or spells may affect their children. And I think one of those spells that we place on our children are those that are told in TV shows. One of those is Euphoria, which at first I praised the show. I loved mainly the music. I'm not gonna lie, the music and Zendaya at first. Zendaya is kind of questionable nowadays, but the guy that did the music, Labyrinth, amazing sound design. I don't know where they found him from, but I still pay attention to when he releases music nowadays, and he's amazing. But in the show Euphoria, they use high schoolers to depict this reality that uh, people will go through that's intertwined with drugs and lust. And in my opinion, it could put into the minds of these children that this is the sort of life that they should live at such an age. Even though the show is depicting the experiences that these kids are going through as being very negative, in a way, it almost looks to me that they glorify these things, similar to how rappers glorify taking drugs in their rap music.
Shouldn't you just, I don't know, call the cops?
Wish it were that easy.
You have a phone, right?
But the government agencies that could have helped have been dismantled. You have to understand me. Good women and men who worked for them have gone missing.
But you've got the evidence.
Oh, Rainey. Proof is useless unless it's proof of something people already want to believe.
And that right there is powerful because, y- well, maybe you would believe me. I was gonna say you won't believe me, but you probably will believe how no. I've had so many conversations with religious, usually Christians, of course, who are so caught up in this like psychosis, religious psychosis, that I can bring them all the proof necessary to have them logically question the books that they believe in and the practices. But no, all they will do is repeat the same spell that they've been indoctrinated with since they exited the womb. They'll get baptized in the church, and from then on it's like they grew up in the church. And it's even harder to get people to want to believe the evidence that you bring if it is evidence that will again attack their identity. And you see this all the time whenever it comes to the African American community being critiqued on how their community is just in a state of chaos. The evidence from the FBI tells us all the time. Now, there is bias that plenty of creators online will acknowledge when it comes to these statistics from the FBI, where it's crime rate, murder rate, or what's the new one that the racists like to use? Per capita. That's what it was. Per capita is used, and it's crazy because I witnessed how they would try to use statistics from the FBI to paint the black community as this community that's just only crime ridden, and they're the only ones who have this high ratio of crime rate that's just crazy in spite of the history that they have in this country, right? And I think they went from using crime rate to murder rate, and now they're just using per capita, and it's just kind of stopping there, and they're refusing to dig any deeper to look at any of the context. I like how my camera moved. They refuse to look at any of the context when it comes to any of these things. And I watched how they went from using each specific statistic and each one getting proven to be taken out of context, and now they're just stuck at per capita, ignoring the context, of course. Now that we know what spells are, I want to be able to give people solutions when it comes to these sorts of videos. And so I want to be able to teach people how to break these spells. And in order to break these spells, one thing that people are going to need to learn, these spells will fuse with you, like I kind of alluded to before. And when they are fused with you, they become protected by you. Not because you want to, but because they become part of your identity subconsciously. And when they're part of your identity, subconsciously, they're more easy for you to protect because you get easily offended by and instinctually want to protect your identity and yourself. One practice that I think helps with this is by disassociating. Not to the point where you become harmless, but to the point when you can distinct between what is actually you and what is actually a characteristic placed on you by someone else, even though it's not actually a characteristic of you. It's an opinion. It's an illusion. It's a spell. That's just like the first half of understanding how to break spells. The other half is by placing a better spell on you, replacing it with a better spell, a better story. And I believe the best ones are like the ones that we see in civil rights movements, the ones where African Americans are getting together to do better for their communities. The ones where famous speakers like Dr. Umar, are trying to that make people of color more aware of the beauty that exists within them as a black man or a black woman versus needing to appeal to a white man or a white woman by spending the most money on cosmetics or on materialistic things in order to appeal to their culture. And even the culture itself is a spell, by the way. I don't want this video to go on too long, but I'm going to end this off by giving us an example of how this video, in my opinion, breaks the spell of how slurs are used.
He said black people say it to black people all the time, but it's a problem when white people do it.
Gays say their slurs to gays. Girls say their slurs to girls. It's almost like in group endearment and out group attacks are two different things, right? Women call each other bitch affectionately all the time. Feels a little different coming from a strange man on the street, doesn't it? My gay friends call each other the F slur in jest. Us straights don't join in because we understand we're not in that group. None of this confuses you. You navigate these rules perfectly every single day without thinking about it. My daddy calls my mommy honey cakes. You, an outsider, don't get to call her that. But you already know why. There's no Jubilee debates about it, no Fox News panels discussing it, because everyone understands. Until we get to this one group and this one word, suddenly every social norm you follow effortlessly everywhere else goes out the window, and you're standing there befuddled like a fool that a term of endearment between family isn't open to the stranger hurling it as a violent attack. You understand just fine. You prove it every other day with every other group and every other word. But this is the one you want access to because this is the group you're addicted to. There's a reason ethicists and psychologists describe racism as an abandonment of reason, because suddenly all cognitive function goes haywire, and the high IQ I keep hearing about stops IQing every other in-group word. You understand the line?
It's funny because this is a whole ass AI. I don't know if this is how most of her content works, where she's just talking to an AI that's a caricature of a black person. But the AI is spitting facts. I mean,
but only for this group and only for this word that turns your brain to mush like a cerebrally challenged heroin addict going through withdrawal. You got these intense cravings, agitation, you're restless, sweating, turning red, watery eyes, you're irritable, desperate, single-minded fixation on getting the next dose of sinful slurs, a pathetic junkie, but chin up. Recovery is possible. First, admitting that you let a stranger's skin tone run your entire life. Let go of the drug. Be free. Let us pray. Heads down.
now when it comes to breaking spells, obviously there's more than one way to break a spell, or there's more than one spell to replace a spell with, if that makes sense. And in this case, this for those who have this need to want to use slurs that may offend other people of color, this should be an example of how it breaks the spell within you that keeps you from understanding why they don't want you to use it and why you feel entitled to want to use it, or how you can understand how using certain words that may hurt other people for other contexts can also be reminiscent of how certain words can hurt people in another context, in this case when it comes to racial slurs. But that's it for this video. I hope y'all liked it. Leave a comment and a like, or both, or separately. This is going to be the sort of format that I'm going to go with. This is my first video, so definitely forgive me if it's kind of all over the place, but I want to make videos that are more deeper in thoughts. So beyond that, y'all stay hydrated and stay black.